Welcome to the Haunting Hour, where we bring your darkest fears to life through the chilling art of horror storytelling. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new tale creeping into the shadows. Whether you're looking to unwind, embrace the thrill of fear, or lose yourself in a world where the line between the living and the dead blurs, this is the place for you. Now dim the lights, settle in, and prepare to be haunted by tonight's story. The rain had come suddenly, catching us all off guard as the day darkened faster than usual. I was 12 at the time, and though not a stranger to storms, I couldn't have imagined the dread that night would imprint on me. My family's house, snug on the outskirts of our small town, had always felt like a fortress, a place where nothing bad could reach us. But the rain that night was different, heavier. It pounded against the windows like it was demanding to be let inside. My younger brother Nate was playing with his toy trucks on the rug near my bed, blissfully unaware of the tension building outside. I watched him for a moment, then turned back to the window. Every flash of lightning illuminated the yard, making the towering trees cast long, skeletal shadows. I stared into the blackness beyond the yard, and for a fleeting second, I thought I saw something move. Something large and quick, darting from one shadow to the next. A streak of water leaked under my window. It wasn't unusual during heavy storms, but this time, it felt wrong, like the rain wasn't just water anymore. I had the strange sensation it was something alive, reaching out to touch the places it didn't belong. "Nate," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Come sit by me on the bed." He glanced up, his eyes round with curiosity, but he didn't argue. He clambered up beside me, clutching his favorite stuffed bear. I wrapped an arm around him, holding him close as the shadows outside twisted with each flash of lightning. We heard a soft creak from the hallway. My heart skipped, and I stared at the door, half expecting something, anything, to appear. But the silence settled again, thick and ominous, and I began to wonder if maybe it was all in my head. But then we heard it, a faint scratching, barely audible over the rain, coming from outside my window. "Nate," I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. "Stay close." I reached for the flashlight by my bed, clicked it on, and pointed it at the window. The light shone through the glass, revealing only the rain, drenching the grass and trees beyond. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us, waiting just beyond the beam of light. And then I saw it, a dark, formless shape, lurking just beyond the window, shifting and undulating like it was made of the very rain that poured from the sky. It pressed against the glass, almost like it was testing the barrier, and for the first time, I felt true, bone-deep fear. My heart thundered as I tightened my grip on Nate, not daring to look away from the thing in the rain. The shape outside didn't move like a person. It was too fluid, too unnatural, like it was made from shadows and water. My breathing quickened as it pressed harder against the glass, and for a moment I thought it might seep through. The sound of rain grew louder, each drop a sharp staccato beat against the window, amplifying the strangeness in the air. "Nate," I whispered, pulling him closer. "Don't look. Just don't look." But Nate, ever the curious little brother, squirmed and tried to peek. I held him tighter, heart pounding as the shape shifted again, pressing closer until it was almost touching the window's edge. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. The rain eased, and the shadows outside returned to normal, trees standing quietly as though nothing had happened. But the dark shape was etched in my mind. A specter that wouldn't disappear so easily. When our mom came to check on us, I wanted to tell her about what we'd seen, but something stopped me. What could I say? That I'd seen a shadowy thing in the rain? She'd brush it off as my imagination. Maybe even laugh a little to calm me down. So I kept quiet, letting the silence settle around us. But as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had visited us wasn't just a trick of the rain. It had felt real, alive. The next day, Nate and I walked through the yard to see if there was any trace of the visitor from the night before. Everything looked the same, except for a dark, damp patch near the window, like the rain had clung to the grass there longer than anywhere else. And that was when I realized it wasn't the last time we'd see it. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the image of that shape in the rain. Nate didn't mention it again, and I decided not to bring it up. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it was just a trick of the rain and shadows. But whenever I passed the window, I felt a chill crawl up my spine, and I couldn't stop myself from glancing over my shoulder, as if I might catch a glimpse of something out of place. One night, a heavy downpour returned, with thunder rumbling low in the distance. I was alone in my room, the house blanketed in silence, and the soft hum of the rain filled the air. I tried to read, to distract myself, but my gaze kept drifting back to the window. Lightning flashed, illuminating the yard in blinding white, and that was when I saw it again. The shape was back. This time, it was closer to the house, pressed against the glass, as if it wanted inside. I froze, my books slipping from my hands, my body tense. The shape seemed to flicker, shifting and swirling like smoke, and I realized with a chill that it wasn't just a shadow. It was something more substantial, something that moved with purpose. I felt a strange compulsion, a magnetic pull, drawing me towards the window. My heart hammered as I stepped forward, moving closer despite every instinct screaming for me to run. As I reached the window, the shape suddenly stopped shifting, forming into something almost like a face, its features blurred and indistinct but undeniably there. And then it moved. A single, slender finger-like shape formed from the dark mass and tapped gently on the glass. Once, twice. Each tap was deliberate, slow, as if testing to see if I would respond. The last tap lingered, and for a moment I could almost hear something beneath the sound. A faint, whispering voice. "Let me in." I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet, breaking free from the strange pull. I clutched my blanket around me, heart pounding in my chest as the shape faded back into the rain, dissolving into the downpour. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in bed, wide-eyed and shivering, listening to the rain until it finally stopped in the early hours of dawn. But as the morning light filled my room, I knew one thing for certain. It wanted something, and it wasn't going to stop until it got it. The next day, I tried to focus on normal things. School, chores, anything to distract me from the unease that gripped me. But no matter where I was or what I was doing, I felt the weight of something watching me, a cold presence lurking just out of sight. Even Nate seemed quieter, sticking close to me, his usual curiosity subdued. That night the rain returned, harder than before. Thunder rolled like distant drums, and flashes of lightning lit up my room in harsh bursts. I lay in bed gripping my blanket tightly, half expecting the shape to return. Just as I was drifting off, a creak echoed through the hallway outside my door. My heart skipped, and I sat up, straining to listen. Footsteps, a slow, dragging shuffle, moved closer to my door, then stopped. I held my breath, listening as my door handle rattled softly, like someone was testing it. I slipped out of bed, moving as quietly as possible, and opened my door a crack. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the nightlight near the stairs. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw it. A dark, dripping figure, its body indistinct and shifting, standing at the end of the hall. Its head turned toward me, and though it had no eyes, I could feel its gaze, cold and piercing. My stomach twisted with fear, and I took a shaky step back. The figure lifted its arm, pointing a long, wet finger down the hall, toward Nate's room. "No," I whispered, the word catching in my throat. The figure tilted its head, its finger tapping on the wall next to Nate's door, a slow, rhythmic beat. And then, it started to move, gliding toward his room, its body leaving wet, dark stains on the carpet as it went. Without thinking, I darted into the hall, standing between it and Nate's door. I clenched my fists, my voice trembling as I shouted, "Leave us alone!" The figure stopped, its form wavering, its head tilting curiously. For a long, tense moment, it simply stared at me, its body dark and dripping in the faint glow of the nightlight. And then it leaned forward, its voice a whisper so soft I could barely hear it over the pounding of my heart. "You can't keep me out forever." Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure melted into the floor, disappearing into the dark stain it had left behind. I stood there, breathing heavily, my body shaking as I tried to process what I had just seen. But I knew one thing. Whatever this was, it wasn't done with us yet. The following days passed in a blur. I was haunted by the figure's words, by the memory of its dark, dripping form. Nate seemed to sense something was wrong, though I hadn't told him about the figure. He stayed close, his usual energy replaced by quiet unease. And then the rain returned. It was a storm unlike any I'd seen, the wind howling as rain battered the house, each drop like a warning. I knew the figure would return tonight, that it wouldn't stop until it had what it wanted. I didn't know what it was or why it had chosen us, but I knew I had to protect Nate. I had to keep it out. I moved through the house, checking the windows, sealing every possible entry point. I grabbed a flashlight and a small heavy hammer from the garage, the weight of it comforting in my hand. I didn't know if it would help, but it was all I had. As the storm reached its peak, I heard it, a soft, insistent tapping on the window. I clenched the hammer, standing in the living room, my heart pounding as I faced the figure outside. It was larger now, its form more defined, as if it had grown stronger. It pressed its hand against the glass, its dark eyes boring into mine, and I felt the pull, the strange compulsion, tugging at my mind. "Let me in," it whispered, the words echoing through the room. "No," I said firmly, gripping the hammer tighter. "You're not welcome here. Leave us alone." The figure's face twisted, its mouth stretching into a terrible smile. It raised its hand, tapping the glass with one long, slender finger. "If you won't let me in, then I'll take what I want." It moved toward Nate's room, passing through the walls as if they were nothing. Panic surged through me, and I bolted down the hall, flinging myself between the figure and the Nate's door. I raised the hammer, my hands trembling as I faced the creature, blocking its path. "Stay away from him," I shouted, my voice breaking. "He's just a kid. Leave him alone." The figure paused, its head tilting. For a moment, it seemed to consider my words, its form flickering like a dying flame. And then slowly, it nodded, its voice barely more than a whisper. "Then I'll take you." It surged forward, its shadowy form enveloping me, cold seeping into my bones as it wrapped around me. I felt myself slipping, the darkness pulling me down, deeper and deeper, until I was lost in a world of rain and shadows. But as I sank, I thought of Nate, of his small, trusting face, and I fought back, pushing against the darkness with every ounce of strength I had. The figure screamed, a terrible, shrill sound, and its hold weakened. With one last push, I broke free, gasping for air as I stumbled back, clutching the hammer like a lifeline. The figure writhed, its form dissolving, until it finally faded into nothing, leaving only silence in its wake. The storm passed, the rain easing to a gentle drizzle. I stood alone in the hallway, the weight of what had happened settling over me. But as I looked toward Nate's room, I felt a surge of relief. He was safe. And for now, so was I. The rain still came, now and then, but the figure never returned. Whatever it had wanted, I had denied it, and it was gone. But I could still feel its presence in the back of my mind, a shadow lingering just out of sight, waiting. I knew I had won for now, but some battles never really end.